Hello class, today we're going to be going over lesson 6.4, how to compose a sequence of transformations. So let's start off. In lesson 6.4, we are going to be learning about a sequence of transformations. So what is that? Well, a sequence of transformations are just transformations that are performed one after another. So this could be a reflection followed by a translation. It could be a translation followed by a rotation. But really, any combinations of transformations is called a sequence of transformations. So basically, if you have a figure on your X and Y axis like this here, let's say we have this triangle here, and then I were to flip it across the Y axis and then slide it down. Since I performed two transformations right there, I performed a reflection and a translation. We would call that a sequence of transformations because more than one happened. All right, so take a second here, get this all written down. But again, a sequence of transformations is simply two or more transformations performed one after another. So if you need to pause the video, feel free to do that. All right, so remember, these are our transformations, right? We have all three of them on the board here that we have learned so far. I want you guys to take a second, pause the video, and try and see if you can figure out what these are. So this first one here, I wonder what you guys think it is. If you guys were guessing that this was a reflection, you are absolutely correct. The reason it's a reflection is because with our axis of symmetry here, the y-axis, each point shares the same distance from the axis of symmetry as our old point. So B and B prime are both 2 units from our axis of symmetry. A and A prime are 5 units, and C prime are both 2 units. Next one right here. What do you guys think this one is? What do you think this one is? If you were guessing that this is a translation, you are absolutely correct. This is a translation because our figure does not change in any way, shape, or form. It simply slides or moves somewhere else on this X and Y axis here. The A, B, C all keep the same order here. The figure does not change size or orientation, meaning it doesn't turn at all. It is simply slid or translated to a different spot on our X and Y coordinate plane. Okay, last one here. This figure right here, what do you guys think it is? If you were guessing that this is a rotation, you are absolutely correct. The reason we know it is a rotation is because our orientation of our points change. The B goes from being the point on the top to the point all the way on the left. The C goes from the point being on the right to the point on top. And the A goes to the point being on the left to the point on the right. So the orientation of our points are changing. You can also tell based off this degree right here. Since we are only making one turn, this would be a 90-degree rotation or a 90-degree turn. All right, so let's talk about a few characteristics of each of our transformations here. So the first thing we could talk about here is a translation. So when we translate or slide a figure, the orientation of the figures does not change, meaning your A's, B's, and C's, or the letters of each point, are going to stay in the exact same spot. All of the points stay in the same order. They're just moved somewhere else on the graph. This is why we call it a slide, because you're simply sliding it somewhere else on your X and Y coordinate plane. Now, how about a reflection? So when we reflect or we flip a figure, the new figure is a mirror image about a certain axis. This can cause the order of the points to change slightly. For example, if we have a figure like this where I have an A, a B, and a C, notice how our A still stays up top, but our B and our C would change order here. Our B and our C would change order when we reflect across the y-axis. That's a little clue for you guys there. A reflection, it often looks like when you're looking into a mirror, when you take an iPhone picture and it flips it, right? There we go, 21st century stuff. It's a reflection, so it changes the order ever so slightly. So if you ever see a figure where it looks like it's basically the same, it still kind of has the same order, but slightly different, like maybe a couple of your points changed location there, then that's a clue that we're dealing with a reflection. Next is a rotation. So when we rotate or return a figure, the order of the new figure points change. So how it changes depends on how much we rotate. But if you ever see something where like you have a triangle, and let's call it again an A, a B, and a C. And then all of a sudden, instead of it being A, B, C looking exactly like this, or just a simple flip, but actually it completely changes the order. So maybe now your A's down here, your B's over here, and your C's up here to create an entirely new triangle like that, then we would call this a rotation. So whenever you see the points completely change or almost like they turned or rotated counterclockwise, that's going to be our clue that we are dealing with a rotation. All right, feel free to pause this video if you need to get these written down here, but we're going to go on to our next slide. So what are the transformations in this example? So if we're looking at our figure here, we see we got two lines, right? So that means we know we have two transformations going on here. So notice in this first one, it looks like a complete mirror image across this y-axis right here. So if it's a complete mirror image across the y-axis, again, that's a big clue that we're dealing with a reflection. So the first thing we have to do to go from image 1 to image 2 is we reflected across the y-axis. All right, now to go from figure 2 to figure 3, we have to do another thing here, right? So again, all of our points stay in the same order, but it almost looks like a mirror image of them, right? From what went up top is now down on the bottom. So since with that, everything stayed the same, it didn't turn on its side at all. It stayed in the exact same order, but it just went over the line here. We know that this is a reflection, or we reflected across the x-axis. But what if we put pause for a second? What if we just look about this as a transformation from figure 1 to figure 3? Can anybody tell what that would be? If you're just thinking about a transformation from the pre-image to the image, so this would be different than our sequence of transformations. This is just a singular transformation. This would be a 180-degree rotation. And it turns out that whenever you reflect your figure twice across two axes, where you go y-axis and then x-axis, you get a 180-degree rotation. But in this one, if we want to talk about it as the sequence of transformations, or as the two transformations, then this would be a reflection across the y-axis followed by a reflection across the x-axis. All right, let's go into an example here. So what are the transformations in this figure? All right, so this should have had blanks in here, sorry. This is a translation blank units left and blank units down, followed by a blank across the blank axis. We're going to try to fill in those blanks here. Alrighty, so since it tells us it's a translation to start, we have to start with a translation, right? So it looks like for us here, we're going to translate some units to the left. Now I can tell based off looking at this figure and based off where our T is, remember the red is our original figure and the blue is our new figure. I can tell that we are going to translate 1.5 and 1. So 1 and then a half units to the left. So 1.5 units left. Similarly, I could see that to get to the point we need to be, we also need to go down 2 spots here. So this would be 2 units down. So this is a translation that sends me x minus 2, comma y minus 2. Excuse me, x minus 1.5, sorry. All right, so we could draw in our new figure here, so it helps us out a little bit. Now I have my Q is right here, my R is right here, and my S is going to be right here. It's my new figure. It looks something like this. All right, so how do I go from this figure that I just drew here to our new blue figure? Well, we know it's a something across an axis. Whenever you're going about an axis, we know it's going to be a reflection. All right, and since we're reflecting about this right here, remember, what's the axis that goes straight up and down? Remember, your ups and downs are your y's, right? So straight up and down here, this must be a reflection across the y-axis. So to go from the red figure to the blue figure, this was a translation 1.5 units left and 2 units down, followed by a reflection across the y-axis. Alrighty, everybody. That was our notes for today. Make sure you guys are writing a good conclusion for this one. If you guys have any questions, please bring them to me in class tomorrow or whenever you can. Alrighty, everybody. Peace out. I will see y'all tomorrow.